I think about a business like I think about an investment portfolio. If I have all of my money in one stock, um, I potentially have a really high reward if that stock does really well. I also have a really high risk. And so I always say that, one of the advantages of a hyper niche business is that it can scale really fast. The disadvantage is it can collapse really fast as well.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Good Business. Today, we're hanging out in my office and just going to do a virtual recording with some of the most respected guys in my life. I've got Jay Owen, Tyler Pigget, Kurt Stockwell, and Wes Gay. They're all a part of my mastermind. And there's a few others that weren't able to make it on the call today, but I invited them on after we had a text message thread go around a few weeks ago when we were simply just talking about the issue at hand, which is economic uncertainty, political cycles, and just this constant ebb and flow of seasons of toughness in business. And so that's what we're talking about today. Jay Owen, he's been in business for almost 25 years, running his agency out of St. Augustine, Florida, Business Builders. We've got Tyler Pigget, who he recently sold his business, Loan for Creative. He's up in the Pacific Northwest. And so he's got a lot of experience in scaling businesses, exiting those businesses, and then helping even in high volume sales roles in the marketing space. And then we've got Kurt Stockwell. He runs a company called Well Dressed Walrus, which is a ton of fun. And he's a design firm not too far outside of Seattle. And then last and certainly not least, we've got Wes Gay. And Wes has joined us. And the reason why I think he brings so much value is because he brings a different perspective. He doesn't own it in an agency. He operates in many ways as a fractional CMO, a fractional CRO for large businesses. And he's based in Atlanta. And so he brings a different perspective as he evaluates his clients and shares a little bit about what they're dealing with and then how he's seen them overcome it. So excited to dive in today. And guys, thank you so much for joining. It's an honor to have you all on.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and kick it off, and it's going to be a free-for-all. In church culture, we call it popcorn. It's popcorn prayers. So for you guys, what have you seen in your businesses and in your clients' businesses? Because in the marketing space, we're looking at hundreds of businesses. And so on this call, I wouldn't be surprised if we had thousands of businesses that we have insight into on a daily basis. So what are you seeing now in regard to our economic condition? And feel free to jump in, guys, if y'all have any insight to that.
This group always has thoughts. I don't know if we always have insights. So those are two different things. I need to set the stage for everybody. I'll say from my perspective, I usually feel I don't know how to answer that question. Because even though I work with a fair number of companies, I've worked with hundreds over the years I've done this. I've had some that have had issues. Like I had a client in 2020 that was a professional speaker. And so her world radically changed just by the nature of what was going on. But it wasn't economic. It was also, just situational. I think where I'm at right now, when I see people in economic uncertainties, a lot of people talk about it, but there seems to be a disconnect I find most often between what the headlines say, what the pundits say, what the articles say, versus what people are doing in real life. I've got a couple of clients right now in the real estate space, residential real estate, which has been in this weird season the last several years. And, they're 8-figure brands, both of them still got growth goals, still growing. And the number one thing I've seen with them that I think differentiates people in seasons like this is they look at it and go, okay, what can we control? How can we adapt what we do to weather the storm and not sit, like Eeyore on the sidelines? Instead say, okay, here's the reality. Here's the boundaries of the game we're having to play right now. How do we adapt to that? What do we need to do differently? How do we need to sell differently? Who do we need to sell to? But otherwise, I haven't run across many people who their businesses are negatively impacted by economic seasons. It just becomes more of the ones who are impacted by economic seasons will be impacted by anything because they haven't figured out how to adapt no matter what.
Yeah, the other thing too is I think if you a lot of it's about zooming out. If we're hyper focused on a particular month, or a couple of months, it's easy for it to be like, oh my gosh, the whole world's falling apart. But it's like any chart. If you zoom out far enough, things tend to change. One of the things I always say about, uncertain times is it's kind of like being afraid of the dark. I always say people aren't afraid of the dark. They're just afraid of what's in the dark that they don't know. And that's what happens. And it's no different from the 2008 economic collapse or 2020 COVID or crazy political cycle that we're in right now. I mean, to your point, Clay, there's always going to be something. And the question becomes, how do we build businesses? And then for us who help market and help other people build their businesses, how do we help them build a business that's actually resilient through time and isn't going to, ebb and flow with every breeze that blows by or even a big storm? I think about this. There's a house over on Mexico Beach in Florida, and the whole beach got leveled with this hurricane. And this one house was left standing. And the reason that house was left standing was because it was built for it. It was all built with solid concrete. It had like deep foundations. The thing just survived the storm. And a great business is able to do that.
So I'd love to just dive in a little bit on that. When you guys are evaluating just what it looks like to be ready for that business or for that uncertainty, for that tidal wave of crazy economic conditions. What are some strategies that y'all have used? And I'm going to throw this to Tyler next, because I know you've sold businesses, you've grown businesses. What are some strategies that you've found successful in propping up your business and even helping your clients guide them through that as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say as I'm not going to say matured because I don't know if I'm there yet, and others would argue as I've gotten more seasoned, I'll use that term. I would say I've probably gotten a little bit smarter just based on, I probably used to take a little too many risks because you didn't really know what the pain of the other side might look like. And so I would say like at this point, either myself or kind of guiding people through it, a lot of, I would say, economic challenges are, and this could be, it'll be fun to debate this, but I think they're personality driven as much as anything else. My personality tends to think offense, think about what's possible. I fight to stay like a dreamer, entrepreneur. Some people kind of more so want to go, oh, I'm just going to take my things and go into the closet kind of thing. And that's fine. That's their personality. And they fight to, not do that potentially. And I think that's true then having that reflect that personality into the people that run organizations or businesses. Because a lot of it has to do with, okay, what does this make possible? And if you're the type of the person that asks that question, and a little bit like, I'm like, oh, you're going to be fine. Like, because none of us can control business, control our own lives as much as we strive for perfection. It doesn't exist. So, we're always trying to navigate the ups and downs and challenges. And so, think about stashing enough cash away so that you'll be fine, in the midst of things, or have a little bit of like cushion so you have the ability to recover if something happens. Don't, overextend. I always use the ski. I don't want to like overextend or get over my skis. If you've ever been skiing, whether water skiing, snow skiing, and you lean too far forward, it can get out of control and a little bit crazy. And so you kind of want to be able to keep that, viewpoint. I would say for a lot of people as well, as they're making decisions of what they would do or whatnot, probably you might take risk, but you're not going to gamble, if that makes sense. So differentiation
Can you give me an example of what that?
Yeah. So you might take risks
and a gamble would be.
Yeah. So you might be looking at, like, for instance, if you've flush with cash flow is incredible, like you've got margin like crazy in a different business, you might then say, oh, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy another business, or I'm going to go hire a team, or I'm going to go invest in this product. And there's two different ways to do that. You're going to potentially look at something that's like, really high return, but probably high risk. You might not do that, that move in a season, because that'd be a little bit more of a gamble versus I might take some risk and like step out and, maybe I'm going to hire like a couple more senior people, or I'm going to go, buy this business over there, but I might do that over more time, or I might borrow money to be able to do that versus put all my cash into it. Or like, so there's lots of different ways that you could kind of mitigate that risk. And I'm sure others would have ideas on that too. But I guess those are a little bit of things. I just feel like I feel like a lot of it's personality driven. Because I think that most business is about navigating change every single season. And this is just another season of trying to figure out kind of how do you navigate that change. So
Yeah.
To piggyback off Tyler, I look at it kind of at almost like a first principles of kind of fundamental things. And I look at it and go, okay, to what Tyler's talking about, he's saying if you've got cash reserves, let's say, that's an asset you have. I think most businesses think assets is literally only what your bank account balance is.
Sure.
But I think we've failed to realize sometimes what other assets do we have. For example, we're all in the marketing world, which means we're all knowledge workers. Website, almost everything we create is digital. The only thing we may produce that's ever physical is a print piece for a client, right? Or some kind of print material. But at the end of the day, what the client really hires us for is our brain, our ability to help them make decisions, and then bring that to fruition to support whatever their goals are. So that's an asset, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And then you look at what relationships do you have that are assets, that are networks, partnerships, et cetera. So you look at those kind of assets you have, especially for many people who I assume who probably listen to this are more of a knowledge work type of space, whether they're in a finance or marketing or sale. I mean, so many of these kind of things where people are hiring you for your expertise. Then you look at what are the opportunities? Well, what do we mean by opportunities? It's who is an audience we know we can serve well with the products that we sell, and they have a problem that's painful enough, no matter the economic times, that if they know if they pay money to solve it, they're either going to make a lot more money or they're not going to lose a ton of money.
Yeah.
And so then you start to figure out the math and you go, okay, if I want to generate 50,000 or 100,000 or 200,000 in revenue in the next 60 days to build up cash reserves or to weather the storm, let's say it's 200,000 because that makes the math easy. Well, are there 40 people who would buy a $5,000 product from us once in the United States of America that has 330 million people? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who are those? What problem do they have? Where are they? How do we get in front of them? How can we leverage the assets we have, both tangible, whether it's physical, tangible cash versus intangible expertise, people, resources, et cetera, and then just be creative with it. Spend a half day or a day and mapping that out. If it gets to that kind of crunch time, fight mode.
I love that. And, I don't know if you guys use a SWOT analysis or do a SWOT analysis on your business regularly, but we talked a lot about strengths. What you just mentioned, Wes, was, hey, you've got all of these skills. Then we talked about weaknesses. We talked about, hey, if you don't have enough cash in the bank, then you're not in a healthy spot for any of these future potential risks. And there's so much opportunity on the horizon. And I, as a visionary in my organization, tend to struggle to get outside of the opportunity box. I'm always looking at opportunities. What I've really wanted to lean into in this episode, guys, is that threats box. Because when we're thinking about, we recently got out of our quarterly leadership meeting, and we all set the expectation going into that quarterly leadership meeting, we're not going to talk about threats because we can't do anything about those, at least right now in this quarter. We're going to focus on weaknesses. And so I guess when I'm thinking about this threats box of political cycles, economic downturn, inflation, I saw a chart today about, I think it's one of our mutual friends that shared it on LinkedIn. It was a chart saying, hey, everyone's saying that inflation is coming down. But that's just a political spin. That's just a marketer saying that. What is actually happening is it's just not growing as much as it once was. The cost of living is not coming down. That's what they're trying to get us to believe. It's just not going up as much as we thought it would. And so I think the reality here is everybody is being pinched. I haven't talked to a single person that hasn't felt the impact of the current economic conditions. Now, some people are less healthy than others, but what I'd love for us just to spend a little bit of time chewing on, and one thing I forgot to mention to the audience today, these guys represent literally West Coast to East Coast. So every aspect of our culture is really represented on this call from a economic conditions perspective. And so when we're thinking about how to address those threats, let's talk a little bit about just this economic condition that we're in. I love Wes's point about, hey, find 40 products you can sell for $5,000 a piece and get to $200,000. Let's do that. So that's how we solve it. But let's try to identify it. Let's try to identify that threat that we're currently facing and what we see on the horizon as a result of that. I mean, are we entering into a recession? There was a threat of it in 2022. I remember even doing a bunch of workshops all over the place of how to prep for the coming recession. And it was the number one attended workshop I did. So when y'all are thinking about how to prep for the coming recession, first off, do you believe it's going to happen? Do you believe we're already in it? And thirdly, what do you recommend on that front outside of what we've already talked about? Kurt, we haven't heard from you yet. Do you want to take this, or do you want to pitch it back to somebody else?
Sure. I would say that the conversations that I've been having with clients recently about how to kind of prepare for this looming recession, whether it's here or not here, or how big is it going to be? I mean, the thing that we keep seeing in the news is it's been way too long for this recession not to hit, and all the experts and economists are kind of looking at trends and going, it's time, it's time, it's time. I think the thing that I keep kind of pushing back on, or pushing in the narratives related to the clients that I'm talking to, is like knowing your customers and why you're unique in their eyes. And one of the things that we did, so I've had a really interesting year personally with my business. I bought my business partner out about a year ago, and what I did immediately is I pushed all my chips in investing in my business structure to make my business really solid from a operational standpoint. I made 2 strategic hires immediately, and what that did is that it allowed me to, as the visionary, get myself out of like daily operations, so I can be strategic and I can have the time and the bandwidth to think more strategically about subject matters like this. And so with that said, I think that businesses that are concerned about upcoming struggles that could potentially be happening, getting the structure of the business right and getting the right people in the right seats is critical.
Yeah.
Focusing on that, and then additionally, knowing why people buy from you, I think is one of the ways that you can kind of set yourself up to be a little bit recession resistant. One of the things that we've been offering with our company is to go in and do interviews with our clients to know why do you buy from this company? Because I think that if whether the recession is here or whether the recession is coming, you can't just as a business go all of a sudden, okay, well, we're going to spin up a whole new section of our company and sell a whole new thing and be recession resistant, right? That just is not realistic for most brands. And so you have to know what makes you unique and the things that you sell that people will consistently buy. And that might sound like a little bit of a crystal ball, but the reality is it doesn't have to be. And so as we've been leaning in, we did this ourselves just about 8 months ago, leaned into why do people buy from us? And we're pushing our chips in on leveraging our personal marketing on the things why people buy from us, and not because you like Tyler said, you can't take in economic times like this, you can't risk focusing on things that are frivolous, or you can't risk focusing on things that are not going to get the return. You don't have the ability to be as a little bit as cavalier as maybe you would in the past. So I'd say that's probably my biggest advice for businesses is know why people buy from you, and push into those things as you're looking to getting into these economic times that are a little bit stressful, a little bit scary, a little bit unknown.
Love it. Love it. All right. So I'm going to toss another question, just kind of piggybacking off of that, about how you've adapted your current business structures. And I know, Tyler, you're in a different scenario, and I'd love to hear your insight on this as well. But how have you adapted your operations to stay agile in the midst of these economic conditions. I know, Kurt, you just addressed that a little bit about making strategic hires for people who can help you scale and be more effective. And then I know also we're in a unique situation with AI and with all of these other tools that are helping increase efficiency. And I guess my question here is, and I'll toss it to Jay, because I think, Jay, you've been in business longer than any of us, right? Like when you started
25 years.
25
99.
years. Yep. Yeah. So
I was in
you've
diapers
got...
when Jay started. So yeah.
So was I when I started. So
Jay's business is almost old enough to move out of the house.
Oh,
Yeah.
can rent a car now, you know.
A Gen Z. There you go. So Jay, what are you doing now? And I know you sit in the visionary seat. You've got an integrator. So when you're thinking about all of what's happening, I mean, are you experiencing any tightening of the belt with your current clients where maybe they're not able to afford your services? Are you experiencing anything where you're having to be more strategic with the hires? Has AI replaced any of the roles that you currently have on staff? Would love your thoughts on those kind of questions.
Yeah, great questions. A couple things. One, a big thing for me is diversification of products, services, and clients. I think about a business like I think about an investment portfolio. If I have all of my money in one stock, I potentially have a really high reward if that stock does really well. I also have a really high risk. And so I always say that, one of the advantages of a hyper niche business is that it can scale really fast. The disadvantage is it can collapse really fast as well. Here in Florida in 2020, I have guys I know that ran marketing agencies who just did hospitality. All their clients were travel and hospitality. Well, what happened to that industry? It collapsed. So what happened to those marketing agencies? They collapsed. Now, they had to restructure and figure stuff out for different businesses. But because we are more diverse in our services, because we will add a new service, a new product over time, that just becomes an additional revenue stream. So multiple revenue streams creates diversity. Multiple clients and multiple industries creates diversity. And that creates a safety net. The other thing I would say is thinking about team structure. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, I had this kind of itch that I wanted to adjust how our team was structured. And so we moved from a place where we were more traditional and that we had a lot of producers in-house. So when I say producers, think writers, designers, developers, all those kinds of roles. They're actually making a thing. They're creators. And we need those people. They're incredibly needed and valuable. But I decided that I wanted to scale a little differently. And so over time, we shifted our internal team to be leaders, managers, and strategists. And then we contract everything else out, really similar to a lot of what a large construction company would do. They have some people in-house who can do some of the things, but they want to bring in a specialty Brazilian tile laying company. They're going to bring in somebody who knows how to do that stuff. Yeah. And so that structure has created safety for us because we can breathe in and out with contracts because I care about all the people that we get to work with, contractors and team members that are employees. But when I hire somebody full-time, it's a different level of commitment to me than a contractor. By nature of the word, a contractor is on contract to do a thing for a week or 30 days or 6 months or whatever. And so there's limited risk involved. And I was thinking of it back then in the context of like globalization, because now there's talent all over the world that people can use. And I felt like a lot of that work was going to start to become commoditized, which it has. What I didn't realize then, which I'm thankful for now, is what AI and technology we're going to do to the space. Because now we need people who know how to leverage technology, and it's allowing us to all of a sudden, when you think about that project triangle of old, which is like cheap, fast, and good, and I said you can only have two. In some cases, you can have all three now because of technology. Now, I'm not trying to do cheap things because we don't do cheap things. We do things at a high quality, and there's value to that, and there should be money exchanged as a result of that value. But we're able to produce higher quality, better things faster because of the tools that are out there, and that's only going to accelerate. So those are some of the things that I think about when I think about downturn economies. And at the end of the day, it's always only about perspective. And time is the best giver of perspective. And so because I've been doing this for, 25 years, I can look back and go, yeah, I remember that. That was hard. And we made it through it. I remember that. And it was hard. And we made it through it. And so it's about building a good foundation. And sometimes, look, don't get me wrong, sometimes I get real stressed out and I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And then my wife looks at me and she's like, you've always made it work. And I'm like, I know. And thank God she is an encourager, because I would not do well. I need somebody in my corner going, no, you got it. Now just go do it. And I'm like, okay, let's get to work.
I love it. Any other insight on that, guys?
I look at it. I mean, I'm obviously in a different space because I'm a solo guy, and I'm going to hire later on this year. But I think when I look at this for me and even for clients, I look at it and go, or I think about, there was a guy in 2020 that I follow sometimes. He's very obnoxious, one of these business guru types. So I throw out about 98% of what he says. But one of the things he said that I've actually thought was valuable was during 2020, he was trying to encourage all of his audience, and he said, you just got to ask the question, who's got my money? And what he meant was, there are companies out there who are still going to spend money on the things that you offer. It's your job to figure out who they are. I talk about everything in kind of three categories. You got to figure out who are the people you serve, what is the problem that you solve, and then what product can you sell to those people that solves that problem. And so I look at it kind of the days ahead. Honestly, as a guy who tries to stay current on news, I couldn't tell you 3 specific economic policies that have ever been enacted that actually directly impact my business. I'm not sure I can name 3 economic policies outside of rate hikes in general, because I just don't know. Like, I'm too busy in my own world. Yeah. I've found that the people that I know who are most successful, there's a couple of guys I've spoken to recently who are friends of mine, both have exited their businesses for more than $100 million. And I've known them for years, and never once have they gotten all their britches all twisted up about what the latest rumored economic policy was. They just really narrowed their gaze and say, what can we control? What's in our grasp? And then what do we need to do to get through it? Yeah, there's going to be some hard decisions. There's going to be some challenging times. It's just kind of sometimes the storms. But like Tyler said earlier, it opens up the door to what does this make possible? And then practically you go, okay, what can we sell as a result? People are still going to have to spend money. Businesses are still going to have to spend money. Consumers are still going to spend money. The opportunity is to figure out where in the market are you going to go do that? I was watching a podcast recently in commercial real estate. The only reason I watched it is because the host and the guest were 2 former clients of mine. And so I just wanted to kind of see what they were doing. And the host was talking about how in 2008 is when he really got serious about commercial real estate, which is an awful time to get serious about anything in real estate. And he said the guest that day had actually been his real estate coach at that point. And he said, obviously this guy lived in Kentucky, and there was not a lot of commercial real estate activity going on then. And the guy said, and his coach said, well, where's there actually deal volume? And the only thing in Kentucky where there was any noticeable deal volume was dollar stores. And so he said, we're just going to build a plan to go after dollar store deals. And they did. And they were very successful and did very well for a few years, because they had to figure out, where is the money being spent? At the end of the day, this is a deeply unspiritual thing, Clay, fellas. And Jay's a church staff member now too. So sorry, Jay. You just got to figure out where the money is, and then just go sell stuff to get the money. Like, it's again a deeply unspiritual answer.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's not. Like, I mean, I know you're joking, but the beauty of it is this: business is very simple. It's just this. It's that the value that we're providing to solve a particular problem, to Wes's point, is of more value than the money in somebody's bank, and so they want to give us their money for the ideas or services or products that we have, because that money is worth less to them than the things we're going to provide to them. And when you can figure out that matrix, it changes everything.
I was with a guy last week that, if based on what we did in a day, he's probably going to make, my Alabama public school brain sometimes is slow on math. He's probably going to make 100x of what he paid me in the next 12 months.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
And he's thrilled he'd spend it. I mean, the price was no problem.
Yeah.
But it's like, regardless of, and he's in a high ticket business. Never once in our conversation last week did economy come up at all.
And one of the things too, like my uncle always told me, he's like, people get all tangled up about sales and they feel like bad about it. They feel bad about it because most of us have been sold to by somebody who's a bad salesperson who doesn't have our best interest at heart. They're manipulating us. But persuasion is not always negative. It is, I always say this, if I have a product or service that I know is going to help somebody else, I am morally obligated to convince them to buy it because it will help them. And when you reframe it that way, that sales is just helping people, as long as you're selling a good product or service. And if you're not, go sell something else.
I love it.
That's how I spent an hour and a half in a vacuum store a year ago and walked out with 2 vacuums. Literally. My wife and I, we needed a new one because we're tired of buying a Shark vacuum every 1.5 years and throwing it away because the dog hair. So we go to an Oryx store, and the guy sold us and just, we bought 2 vacuums. It's like,
Wes, I told you I was going to do this. I'm going to interrupt you.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to interrupt
Good.
you. I knew, got to. Oh, we're running short on time. So I want to get through a couple more questions. This is great. Thank you, guys. Okay, so wanted to bring up a topic that someone had mentioned earlier. So I don't know about you guys, but my business, Good Agency, we serve small to medium-sized businesses. So small meaning as small as 1 to 2 million in revenue, as long as they have decent margins, as large as 100 to 150 million in revenue. And so what that looks like for us right now is very different when it comes to the economy, because the $1 to $2 million businesses, they're struggling. They're struggling right now. Because when they have to tighten the belts, it's coming directly out of the owner's pocket. And so they can choose to tighten the belt and keep that income coming into the owner, or they can choose to continue to invest, but that owner feels that pinch all the more compared to a $120, $150 million business who they're like, oh, well, we're going to lay off 1,000 people, and that's, I mean, maybe not 1,000 people, but you track them with me. So the key here is small businesses are the ones being impacted the most right now. Y'all have touched on a few situations where you have businesses and clients who are thriving right now. Well, just real simply put, are any of those businesses that are thriving right now less than 5 million in revenue?
No.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about something that's happening that I personally have felt, because I am sub 5 million in revenue as well. And so I want to share my screen, and hopefully the audience can take a look. If you're listening in, I'm sharing something that was kind of shoved under the rug this year by the Biden administration, the Department of Labor, where they are requiring, if you have someone on staff and they're getting benefits, they're salaried, they have to be making at least $60,000 a year by January 1st, 2025. And so the current threshold prior to July 1st this year was 35,000. It bumped up to 43, almost 44,000. So the whole point is the people that are being impacted by this right now are small businesses. So by January 1st, 2025, you cannot have a salaried employee that is exempt, meaning they're getting benefits, all that kind of stuff, and they can't charge you overtime. You cannot have that person on staff. So this is one of, at least 1,000 different policies right now that are really crushing small businesses. Now, this is not me trying to complain. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to bring to light here the fact that we have a very real problem. Right now, and Jay, you saw this coming, and I love that you alluded to this by bringing in your strategists, your leaders, your managers, and outsourcing your content. Because with AI, and now with stuff like this, where people are small businesses are forced to pay a certain salary, well, we're in a situation where those jobs should be going overseas. I mean, we don't want them to go overseas, but they should be going overseas. They're offshore, whether it's an AI or it's truly offshore. I mean, I'm talking to folks in Argentina right now to help us with our content. And so the whole point is small businesses alike, sub 5 million, sub 10 million, somewhere along those lines, they're all feeling that pinch. And what I want to walk away with because I know we're coming up on time, before we walk away from our call today, what advice, and I want to hear from all of you, what advice would you give right now to someone who is in that category of sub 5 million? And I'll start. I'll kick off. Guys, I would highly recommend that you tighten the belt now versus later, because we see where the freight train is going. I mean, it doesn't matter who's in office in 2025. We see where that freight train is going. We know that AI is taking away jobs, whether the government says it does or not. It's taking away jobs because it's creating more efficiencies. And so even today, I had a quarterly review with a team member, and I said, hey, we love you. You're an amazing team member, but you've got to turn into a strategist, a leader, if you want to have a job by January 1st, 2025. And that was a tough conversation. And so what I'm just saying is, hey, if you've got people on staff where you see that AI in the next year could potentially replace or take part of their job, you need to be warning them and you need to be planning for that. I went through a pretty tough time in 2020 because I had a content business, to Jay's point, that was very focused on the hospitality industry. And we went from generating $250,000 a month to generating, I think we had $2,000 a month on average for about 4 months. And so it hit us hard. The thing is, I saw it coming. Even before the COVID thing happened, we were already seeing some sort of recession kicking in, and COVID just was, honestly, it was very convenient. That's a different podcast, though. So we were in that situation, and I knew I should have laid people off. I knew I should have slowly trimmed the fat, but I didn't because I cared too much about people. And honestly, I learned a lot about that, and it was very uncaring to not do that. So when it comes to our current market conditions, that's what I would recommend is if you see it on the horizon, don't wait. Make the decision now and plan accordingly. Take it offshore. Make sure you only have leaders, managers, strategists on your staff. And that's what I would recommend, whether it's painful or not. Do you guys agree with that? And do you have any other ideas? Mm-hmm. And if you disagree, please tell me.
One of the things I've seen in business in general, regardless of economic conditions, of companies that are under 3 to 5 million, mm-hmm. is that they're Vern Harnish in his book Scaling Up talked about the 5 valleys of death in business. The first one hits about $1 million. I see this right now. The client I've got, it's $1.5 million. They're a little late to the game on the trying to navigate through the valley of death for the owner. He didn't die, but the business death. Anyways, they're having to refigure out some stuff to really be able to grow. And I think economic uncertainty just accelerates that valley of death and really magnifies it because good times can cover up a lot of mistakes and bad habits.
For sure.
Ask any residential real estate agent, they all look like heroes and they all look geniuses in 2020 through 2022. And then interest rate change, they look like idiots, a lot of them.
Yeah.
No offense. Anyways, but I would say what it ends up doing, what economic uncertainty does, the businesses should do anyway, is it forces them to focus. It focuses on their best lead sources, focuses on their best marketing dollars, focuses on their staffing. The companies that I've worked with, I got a company right now that's a client. They were $4.5 million in 2023. They're on track to do over $6 million in 2024. If they don't sell a single new business or a single new deal as of May, they've already hit their $6 million annual goal in terms of book contract.
Wow.
The number one difference for them is they focused. They focused on their marketing channels, they focused on their sales efforts, and they focused on their product offering. And that's it. So economic uncertainty is really a great time to say, where do we need to focus? Where do we need to narrow down the audience we serve? Where do we need to narrow down our marketing efforts? Where do we need to narrow down on what our staff focuses on so that more and more we really invest intentionally in higher leverage activities so that those higher leverage activities leads to more sustainable growth.
Love it. Kurt, Tyler? Jay?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick and just lean into what I was saying before about know why people buy from you, know why you're unique. And in those conversations, we've done this a few times now with businesses. We've uncovered more things that their current raving fans want to buy from them. And our clients are creating new little mini products around the needs of their customers, and their customers are asking for it. They're saying, we have money to give you. Could you do this? Because I need more of your help. But a lot of times businesses don't know that because they never ask. Second thing, of course, cash reserves is critically important. And I would say also, you got to train your staff on how everybody can look for sales opportunities. Whether you're not a quote unquote salesman, train your staff on how everybody can see sales opportunities and reward your staff when they bring something in that brings in revenue. I mean, obviously laying people off and doing all of those things and trimming the fat, that's all awesome. But I mean, at the end of the day, if we didn't have to do that, that'd be even better.
Sure.
And it raised the level of revenue you're bringing in by turning everybody into a salesperson.
That's great. Tyler?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think the easiest thing to do, I mean, this is probably in life as well as business, but is to get fat. It's really hard to stay lean. And I would say from a business standpoint, it's really tough. It's hard. Like when you have money, you spend it usually.
Yep.
Especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to figure out, hey, I think I could invest this there, do this or with that over there. And it's really hard to stay lean. And so Never waste a great opportunity as a business owner. And this is an opportunity to get lean. And so do hard stuff. There's not very many cool books or movies or stories that we've all read where the person's living a kind of a boring life, not doing challenging things. And so as an entrepreneur and a business leader, it's going to be, do hard stuff. Like if that's cutting the fat, laying people off or challenging what you've been doing, great. I'd also say as far as like that minimum salary going up, I mean, it's a disservice to let people in your organization just kind of sit there and collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
Challenge them to become more valuable. And they might be ticked off for that moment, but it's only going to pay off in 5 years for them. And so have those conversations and kind of challenge them to get better and become more valuable, which is really hard. I know that. I'm not trying to take out the emotion of it, but I challenge people to do hard things.
And
I'll
land the plane real quick with this. All those things are true. Do we need to tighten our belt? Yes. We need to make sure we're not spending money we don't need to? Yes. Do we need to make sure we have good margins? Yes. Do we need to make sure we have the right people in the right seats? Yes. Of course. Those are table stakes. But the most important thing that I found over 25 years is this. You have to have the right people around you. You got to have somebody to look up to, somebody to stand beside you, somebody who looks up to you, and somebody who believes in you when you don't believe in yourself. You got to get in community. We're not meant to do this thing alone. If you do it alone, you're going to get in trouble. But if you do it with the group, that's why I love this group of y'all, and I'm thankful to get to do life together, is you're just much, much, much more likely to make it through the hard times, and you'll have a better time doing it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I know we're at time, but it's been a blessing. And everybody for tuning in, I hope you guys connect with Tyler, Wes, Kurt, and Jay. I'm going to make sure that they are in the description. Go add them on LinkedIn, connect there, and they all have amazing things to say. And I'm not joking. I know that came across a little sarcastic, but it is 100% true. And, when it comes to dealing with hard things, I think Tyler hit it on the head. In fact, I think Tyler should write a book, and it should be titled Be Boring, because I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome to be not the flashy one, not investing too much. And so I think on that note, I think we should wrap up. But y'all, thank you so much for tuning in to Good Business this week. If you found this encouraging, if you found that this was impactful to you in any way, please hit the like button, subscribe on YouTube, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and don't forget to share this with a friend or a family member that you feel like would also be impacted. And we'll see you guys next week on Good Business.